Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on where you're joining us from. Welcome to today's review session. My name is Lavenda. I hope you can hear me. Just confirm if you can hear me well.
Yes, we can
Yes.
hear.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Welcome to today's review session. My name is Lavenda Oching once more. I am a research assistant at the Africa Research and Impact Network, and also a fellowship coordinator. And I welcome you all to today's review session. This is a very interesting topic that we're going to discuss. The topic for today, just in case you didn't get a chance to see our poster, we're going to discuss about resilience and adaptation strategies among women in response to climate change, and specifically, a study that was done in Wajir West Sub-County in Wajir County in Kenya. So just to introduce the topic briefly, we all know that climate change really presents a very significant threat to the community, especially those who are relying on them resources, the resource dependent community, and even the marginalized community. So they're really affected looking at the impact of climate change. And Wajir, which is one of the areas found in the ASAL areas, is not left behind, is also affected drastically. So women who also play the critical role in this area, were actually the backbone of every family, are also affected because one, they all rely on the resources, like let me say Wajir County, which is I believe most of the women there are relying on resources like firewood and all that to make the livelihood or kind of for sustenance. And when climate change impact affect these people, women are not left behind, they're disproportionately affected. So despite these challenges, these women have really done amazing work in trying to be resilient and curb climate change activities or impact to them. So in our review for today, our speaker, who is Dr. Moses Mutiso, will take us through the various strategies or resilience strategies that these women have put in place, and also come up with various strategies that we think can also be adopted or can be incorporated in whatever they already have, to ensure that even the policies that are being made to protect these people is robust and really address whatever is on the ground. So Dr. Moses Motiso is a seasoned lecturer or academia and researcher. He has over 17 years of experience in higher education and more than 20 years in conducting empirical studies. So he also a PhD in sociology, and currently he serves as a lecturer at the Department of Sociology and Sociology, Psychology, and Anthropology at Moi University. So, Dr. Moses, I would really love to write. So, just a minute. I really don't know if we have a translation icon. Uh, I don't think there is. So sorry for the francophone who are joining us for the first time. We will look into that. So probably just bear with us, and sorry about that. So Dr. Moses, I will welcome you to take us through your presentation. Just let us know when you're ready. And in case you need us to help you share the screen, we will be glad to do so. Over to you, Dr. Mutua.
Hope I'm audible. Am I audible?
Yes, just put your presentation, your slides in presentation mode.
Okay, thank you. So thank you, Lavinda, for the great introduction and the research that I'm about to present about. It's actually a collaboration that I've done with some of my three colleagues. That is Professor Roman Nicolette, who is the director of Center of Interdisciplinary Studies of Family, Children and Society, University of Western Cape in South Africa. I also have Ms. Hamdi Abdi, who is a postgraduate student at Moi University, and Ms. Claire Nakwea. So this study is based on a real examples of how women are going about dealing with climate change. And ideally, if I might give the background, is that uh, due to climate change, happening, especially in Wajir. The issues of droughts and floods have affected them, especially the flash floods and the drought. And them being a community where they're predominantly, the residents of that place are predominantly pastoralist, then you find that ladies are left by men on the ground as men shift looking for pastures. So since they're left by men, you find that they are more hit by the climate change. Of course, we all know that women in developing countries, they bear the greatest burden as caregivers because they're the ones who are supposed to take care of the kids and also to take care of their husbands or their relatives. They also do issues to do with food producers and water collectors. So they face increased workload and limited resources. But generally, if you look at our region, the sub-Saharan Africa, and especially in areas that we call ourselves, they do experience a lot of severe climate impacts, which can even worsen the economic instability and household survival challenges. Remember, when all these harsh things are happening and these communities predominantly pastoralists, what happened? The men goes away, the ladies are left with all the burden. And even within Kenya, if you look at ASAL regions, a place like Wajir West is normally highly vulnerable due to recurrent droughts. The temperatures are normally high there. We talk about livestock losses, they are much. There are also cases of destruction from floods. So leaving women responsible for securing food, water, and healthcare. Remember, the men have gone with livestock. And women are also disadvantaged because if you look at it, is that they've got limited access to financial services, education, and decision-making power. So they cannot be able to adapt effectively to climate shocks. So despite all these challenges, there was a gap that existed. Like the four of us, we wanted to understand how women's community-driven adaptation strategies can be brought out so that we can be able to see issues related to how climate change can be tackled in terms of gender-sensitive climate solutions. So this study, of course, was based on the ideas of sustainable livelihood framework, where we wanted to look at issues such as, can this framework explain how women are adapting to climate change in terms of resilience? So this framework, according to Chambers and Conway, it explains how communities mobilize diverse resources to sustain livelihoods. And there are 5 critical issues under this framework. One is the human capital. Do women in Wajir West able to use their skills, their labor, education, and knowledge transfer to go about to beat the impacts of climate change, especially drought and floods in the area, for them to survive? 2, the issue of natural capital. Do women in that place, are they able to access land, water, forest for survival so that they can mitigate the issue of climate change? Third is the issue of physical capital. For instance, their infrastructures, if we look at home, we look at roads and water storages, how are they able to access them to deal with issues of climate change? We also look at it in terms of financial capital. Are they able to get issues to do with saving groups or chamas or microloans? Because if they can have financial capital, then there are chances that they can be able to mitigate climate change. Then we also looked at social capital, like community-based support, peer networks. How are women using these community-based support or peer networks to go about dealing with climate change in the absence of their spouses or their male relatives? This approach, of course, provided a holistic approach to understand how women navigate climate challenges. In a summary, the methodology that we used, of course, our study area was Wajir West, and it's because it's a climate vulnerable ASAL region. our research design was a qualitative approach so that we capture lived experiences. We had, in terms of sample size, we had only 16. It's an in-depth interviews, qualitative. We felt that even the 16 ones were enough so that as we started, we are target like around 25, but by the time we reached the 16, it had already been saturated that there's no more information that we could get. We also had 2 focus group discussion for community level insights. One of the focus group discussion was purely women who had experienced climate change, while the other one, we had a mixture of both women, men, and people working, key informants working within this setup of working within the area of climate change or weather or disaster management, who could actually be able, through the discussion, to either validate the information that we are getting from the women. For data analysis, of course, we use NVivo software, NVivo 14, to identify the patterns. And our write-up in terms of paper, our evidence is presented in terms of narrative, verbatim quotes. Ethical consideration, we sought for informed consent before we started. There was also confidentiality and participant anonymity, but also at the same time, we were able to get ethical review and for the proposal, and we are also able to get research permit from NACOSTI on the same. So if I come to the results of these findings of what are the strategies, because the core issue we were asking ourselves is, despite climate change, what are some of the strategies that women are using? Before I embark on giving you the strategies that women use in Wajir West, it's also good to know the kind of profile of the respondent in terms of demographic characteristics. In terms of age distribution, 50% were aged between 21 years to 42 years, that is prime caregiving and working years. We had 37.5% aged between 43 to 63. Then we also had some category of 6.2 under 20, but when you say under 20, it doesn't mean that these people don't have. Our threshold of being of giving information was 18 years and above. So those who are between 18 to 20 years were just under, and under 20 were just 6.2. Then we had over 64, like 6.2 population, 6.2% population. For marital status, 37.5% were married, 37.5% were single, and you can imagine that community where you don't expect such a kind of thing because girls are married even at a tender age. 18.8% were widowed and 6.2% were divorced. So you can imagine if you combine the ones who are single and are being affected by climate change, you combine those who are widowed, that means that they don't have someone who can help them alone, even if they've got kids. Kids they're also in terms of that personalist kind of economy. 6.2 are divorced. In that case, widowed and divorced women face higher financial and caregiving burdens. In terms of household structure and family size, 56.2% were actually in polygamous households, and 43.8% were in nuclear families. 68 of all those who are in family, still when if we asked the entire population that we were interviewing them, 68.8% had children, and among those who had children, 31.2% had 5 to 8 kids, and 12.5% had more than 9 kids. So you can look at that burden. You are alone, your man has gone to look for pasture with livestock, and he's also married, he's a polygamous guy. You are left alone at the compound alone. With majority, we are saying that they had 5 to 8 kids. It's a total burden for women. In terms of education, 25% had no formal education, 18.8% had primary, 37.5 had secondary, and 18.8 had what we call tertiary. So if we also sum up in terms of employment, 31.2 are unemployed, 31.2% still housewives, 37.5% self-employed in informal sector. So if you look at employed, unemployed, and the household, already more than 60%, they are being affected by climate change, and these are people who don't have any source of income because they are unemployed and housewives. They are depending on the man. Based on all these dynamics, in terms of cultural identity, we are looking at them, all of them are Somalis in terms of ethnicity, and they are Muslim. So all these profile could have a link in terms of the gender roles and adaptation strategies to deal with climate change. So what we found out is that in terms of resilience and adaptation strategies among women in response to climate change, the first cluster was economic adaptation strategies. So within economic adaptation strategies, we had a number of strategies that these women in Wajir West Sub-County were using. The first one was livelihood diversification. They now opted to shift from pastoralism to informal trade. Go collect firewood, sell. The little milk that is there for the few livestock that have been left in the compound, they go and sell. Because remember, the place is drought and they cannot get food. They've got problem of food security. What they do, they sell the little milk that they get to get vegetables. That was one, and economic adaptation strategies. Another aspect, remember, ideally, being in a community where it's a Muslim community, and among the Somalis, they were supposed to, and the spouse is married like 2 or 3 wives. Majority are supposed to stay like housewives, but due to harsh ecological conditions, they started now moving away from the household to start selling goods at local market. Despite looking at the heat wave in the area, they had to do something for the sake of the kids. Remember, the husbands, due to climate changes, they were forced to run from the area. So at the end, in fact, of economic adaptation strategies, these women started to take up financial roles due to men's migration. And even in terms of economic adaptation strategies, women now started to weigh. Like, for example, their budgeting skills had to improve. The little that they had to make choices of what to buy. And in most cases, what they are doing at that place is that they wait at the season where things are plenty. If it's food, is what the time that they've got money, they are not hard hit with the issues of climate change, then that is the correct time now they decide to do what? To buy either things in bulk or save for the time that they'll be hit. Of course, economic adaptation strategies has a policy implication, like the need for vocational training has to be there so that they can manage what? They can manage even this business as well. Microfinance access is also an issue because even if you want to get microfinance access, especially in some of these formal institutions, not informal, they are required to have security in terms of guarantor, like a husband or something like that, or someone close. That now means that it can be another thing altogether. The second thing that we looked at is we have looked at the strategies that are using economically to remain relevant. How about now another strategy? Another strategy was relation to community-based support networks. interesting, these women, during the time that we have they have got money, there are no harsh ecological climate changes. The little even they get from their spouses, they would to save in these groups we call like women groups, the chamas, table banking pool. So these women have been able to pull money for emergency loans, so that when there's the effects of climate change affects them most, then they can be able to do what we call rush, because their husbands are not there, they don't have crops, the livestock have died, they can rush to their groups, borrow money, take their kids to school, or buy food. And this money of community-based support networks, they were able to use it to pay school fees and medical expenses. We also have a situation where within the community-based support networks, they are joined themselves. I remember there was a place where we went during that time collecting data. The place had been solely affected by floods which had come in Wajir West. This study we did the month of August, September last year. That is when we collected the data. And around June, July, there was heavy rains. So some of the houses were knocked by flash floods. You might think that Wajir it's experiencing, it's a very harsh, it has a lot of heat waves. But when floods come and drought, the ravages that are seen are too much. So women, in terms of community-based support networks, have moved to those chamas and even sought financial aid for home repairs after floods. So remember, it's like they're left on their own. Men have gone to take men prefers that they want the soft life. That is what women were telling us in focus discussion. When it's drought and floods, you won't see men around. They'll pretend that they're taking livestock to another place. There's no pasture, or they don't want to lose. But ideally, women, you are left alone. So any ravages of impacts of climate change, you deal it alone. Of course, they also went to community-based support networks because of trying to reduce on high interest loans. Because if you go to the women self-help groups or community-based self-help groups of the women, the interest rate becomes lesser. There's also issue of policy implications, strengthening saving groups, financial literacy, training, and access to microfinance. The third aspect that women were using in terms of resilience and adaptation strategy, it's because of climate change effects, psychologically they are tortured and their emotions are also affected. That is one of the things that came out. So women opted in the study area to do what we call, to have what we call peer-based support, for example. They were saying that they used to share challenges and they offer emotional encouragement to one another, because they say, if I'm having a problem, there's drought, my kids are suffering, not food, I'll die if I don't communicate message even to a friend within our groups. Others had opted for issues of spiritual coping mechanism, prayer and religious gatherings. Yeah, they pray. They tell you, for me, I have to pray to Allah, or I meet other women. We pray together, asking God to have mercy to remove this climate change, but at the same time also to turn our situation to better, especially when men have cut communication at that time. The thirdly is routine planning. To them, especially the ones who are working in marketplaces, those who had done the economic thing due to climate change, they had opted to start doing the market thing of selling like firewood or milk to get money. They said, yes, my husband is not there. I'm working hard because of my kids. What do I do so that I don't also lose my kids emotionally? they used to plan their activities that by the time they don't stay for long hours, like they can go morning hours in the markets, do their things. By midday, they are back at home so that to continue bonding with the kids, so that to reduce stress and manage responsibilities within the family. Issues of self-care practices, engaging in social activities, spending time with children, the same aspect I was talking about. Others were lacking. Those within Wajir West Sub-County, others who are closer were lucky because closer to Wajir town, because they'll tell you there are a lot of NGOs providing stress management and psychosocial support. I feel overwhelmed. Go talk with someone free of charge. Then there's the fourth category in terms of resilience and adaptation strategies among women in response to climate change, like disaster risk reduction and emergency response. Now, others said that because this is something that repeats itself after some certain period of time, some are wiser nowadays. Household preparedness, whether your man is there or not, women reported that some of them have started stockpiling food, even in the groups that they are and among themselves, water and essential before disaster, so that in case it happens, you have got enough. If drought hits, at least there's something can keep you going until the period of drought ends. Emergency evacuation plan. Some of them, especially when it's something like floods, there are some who said they went as far as Mombasa from Wajir to relatives in Mombasa to stay when there are floods, or they move from Wajir to what we call Garissa town. Others said that they tried as much as possible to do what we call flood-proofing homes. Like even you see them generally, how the kind of lifestyle they live like Muslims. You'll find that not majority of them have got they prefer these issues of furniture compared to the Christian community. So they were saying ours we normally put what we call of course as we call it we could call it carpets, but then they'll say they put the pazias in Kiswahili. No, not pazia, they put mikekas in Kiswahili. So in putting it, they'll say this is where we sit and we sleep. But when it's time for floods, we also have to have like plastic chairs or something. So we raise, it's like we raise from sitting down, we now put ourselves somewhere up. Then there's also issue of ceiling walls. They started to try as much as possible during the floods time, if there are walls which are allowing water to pass, they could get some fundi to do some repair and even reinforcing structures. Some within their groups, they were doing what we call group planning and emergency savings. And then post disaster recovery, some of them were using savings to repair homes and collective action for cleanup. Then the fifth category of aspect that came out in terms of resilience and adaptation strategies among women in response to climate change is the element of health and nutrition strategies, like traditional herbal remedies, use of local medicinal plants for common ailments, nutritional diversification, incorporating like drought-resistant crops and wild foods. And this is a time that I realized that people have got, we realize that people have got different perceptions when it comes to issues of food diversity, especially among Muslim community and women in Wajir. They were telling us that nowadays, even with these foods like githeri, beans, which some previous years people could not think like this community can take it, but they tell you we have to eat different kind of foods we now don't pick. Even in health and nutrition strategies, they were still talking about faith-based coping, social networks, and community counseling. So ideally, there's a policy implication, strengthening healthcare access, nutrition, education, and emergency medical funds. So to conclude, generally, what we have concluded in our studies that women are playing a central role in resilience and adaptation to climate change in Wajir West. Secondly, these are most of the women that we interviewed are in their prime caregiving and working years with limited formal employment and education. Thirdly, it's in terms of economic adaptation. They have tried to do livelihood diversification. They don't rely only on pastoralism. They're trading on firewood, vegetables, and milk. Women-led saving groups are also providing financial support for education, healthcare, and home repairs. Psychological resilience is also something that is in them nowadays and is built through peer support, spiritual reflection, and mental health strategies. We're also looking at it in terms of disaster risk reduction strategies like stockpiling supplies, flood-proofing homes, and family evacuation planning. We also have aspects of health and nutrition strategies, which involve herbal remedies, dietary diversification, and saving for healthcare. We also have women's adaptation strategies like strengthening both household and community resilience, and policies needed to enhance their financial skills, their technical and psychosocial resources for women's climate adaptation. So some of the recommendation is that, yes, of course, these women have diversified their livelihood, but do they have skills for the businesses? So we were suggesting that there's need they should be provided with vocational training, like in climate resilient trades. Apart from selling firewood, selling vegetables or milk, can they be given some alternatives like poultry farming there, for example, tailoring skills, or even soap making, or even the organizations, the microfinance institutions that are there? Could they partner with some of these women's groups that women are in Wajir and offer like startup grants, equipment, and raw materials to support stable income sources? It's a food for thought. Women are also relying on the chamas, the saving groups, the women self-help groups, or you call them, if you want to call them, community-based organizations. There's need to link women-led saving group to microfinance institutions for better financial access. And sometimes it's tricky because a woman who is in Nigeria, they tell you, we want to get this money from this microfinance institution, but because of the issues of security, I'm forced to get it through my group. And probably my group, the idea that I have in mind or the vision that I have in mind of the project that I want to start is not in line with what my group wants. So they should be flexible, the microfinance institution. If someone comes, even if it's a group, let it not be, if someone has got a great idea of how he can improve or start a small business, let her be allowed to do that, instead of now the group leaders deciding this is the project that we want. Because if it sinks, if it's a project that people have not done what we call cost benefit analysis, and it sinks, then still women will find themselves, they have to pay, and with harsh ecological conditions, they still have to face it rough. The issues of mental health and psychosocial support. We are talking about established community-based mental health program for stress management and emotional well-being. That is what we are suggesting, because yes, they were doing psychosocial support between friends, women, ladies friends, but the ones who are closer to Wajir town, at least they could be able to access the facilities. How about those who are not closer to Wajir town, but they are within the Wajir West Sub-County? Is there a way that even these facilities, they can give support to them? Something like mobile. There's also something like to provide affordable food-proofing kits like water-resistant bags, raised platform, emergency lighting, even strengthening early warning systems. Because of course, within the area we notice there's a national disaster management, NDEMA. But then the information that they get, they only share it with government agencies. Could it be high time that also these early warning systems are shared with the locals so that they can plan the same? And I'm very sure women are good in planning. They can be able to, if such an early warning system can be shared to them, then their likelihood to succeed. We're also talking about, there's also likelihood of us, we should promote drought tolerant crops like millet, sorghum, with access to seeds and irrigation support. People can build balls, and people in Wajir, the women, are taught about agricultural practices, and they are able to survive despite climate change. So, ladies and gentlemen, that marks the end of my presentation. So, unless I return back the case to Lavinda.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ari, for those insights and highlights on how women are really doing an amazing job there in order to be resilient and curb the issues of climate change in Wajir. And I think the same thing might happen or might be done by other women in other areas which have not been put here, the other ASAL areas as well. And also the recommendations, I think they're really making sense. They're really a lot. And I can see someone in the chat section talking of the gender issues being also incorporated in the climate change adaptation space. And I think this is really recommendable. This is really great. And thanks so much for that presentation. So moving to the next phase, this is now the Q&A session, sorry. In case someone has a question, someone has a comment, kindly feel free to just raise your hand. You can comment as well. I'll read it for you. So I can see comments coming in. That's really amazing. Thank you so much, team. I will start with Asoma. Asoma, if you can hear me, kindly just go ahead and yeah, let us know. In case you have a question or a comment, just go ahead, unmute and speak. Asuma, Arona Asuma, if you can hear me, kindly go ahead. In case you're speaking, you're on mute. Okay, I think probably he has internet. Maureen, go ahead.
Thanks, Lavenda. Thanks, Dr. for the really great presentation. Mine is just a comment and a quick question in regards to how the presentation has really captured the intersectionalities that rural women face, that the research or the study was able to look at the different vulnerabilities that women face, and it has really, really highlighted it very well. So I commend that, because we tend to assume that women are a homogeneous group, but women actually being marginalized, in them there are also others who are really marginalized, and that has really come out clearly in this research. But one question I don't know if you're able to capture this in regards to the access to water and sanitation facilities. How is it like from the study, especially looking at Wajir being an ASAL area and looking at the different risks and hazards that are found in that place? What are some of the adaptation or the strategies that women have adapted in matters of water and sanitation? Thank you.
And Dr. I hope you heard the question. Probably you take one more, then you can answer it. Hello? Dr. I hope you can hear me. Why did it drop?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I think you're speaking on mute. I'm saying we take one more question, then you can just answer the two together. So I can see Arona asking in the chat section that my question is, how do you identify the women who are affected by climate change? So how did you identify these women who are affected by climate change? And the other question was on the water and sanitation issues in Wajir. How is the situation? So probably you can answer the two together.
Hello, you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So the first question was on strategies.
Yeah, the water and sanitation issue in Wajir.
Oh, the wash one, eh?
Yeah.
That's the correct one, because at some point I think at some point I could not get Maureen well. And the second one, is it about
How you identified the study group probably.
okay. So now for the wash thing, they had some slight challenge because one, most of the balls had dried. The ones which are community. So for dealing with water, they had to go for the private ones. Private ones, these are the ones that are owned by people who have just they do it based on what we call there's some people who are rich in the community who had dug their own, so they had to rely on those ones. They'll tell you the rich, they normally say among the Muslim data, water is something that you cannot deny anyone. So they relied on that bit, private ones. Of course, there are also some other agencies that used to supply water, some of the NGOs who used to supply water during time of drought. And so those ones are some of the things that they were relying on. But now, the issues of sanitation had a problem because, their water table is slightly low. So there were cases where they were having issues of diarrhea. Those ones they said for a fact. So what they used to do, even for the existing, during floods time, for the existing boreholes which are there, what they used to do is they put the chlorine to deal with that issue of sanitation. Then for some of them, they are used to like you go to a place, they used to do their thing. For the long call, they used to do their thing sometimes into tickets. But during floods time, they were actually having problem because that thing could also mix with that. But generally, in terms of water access and storage, some of them had water harvesting. The way they've done the housing, the gutters they were able to at least store some for that. They also sought for alternative water sources from deep wells during droughts. We're also talking about strict, at household level, they had what we call strict household water management to minimize wastage. But still, it's unfortunate that if all these people don't come through, the private developers and what I'm talking about, some of them were still forced to walk to long distance to fetch water from reliable sources, which even could be like 2 or 3 neighboring villages away. In terms of sanitization, some of them, but not much. I saw something to do with, we saw something to do with like at least constructing like permanent, or we call it semi-permanent kinds of latrines, which for them, they wanted it for that. Of course, I've talked about the issue of water purification methods like boiling water, using filtration systems, or even traditional purifying agents. I don't know whether I've answered that to satisfaction of of the person who was asking about that question. That is Maureen. Maureen, are you satisfied with my response?
Yeah. Thank you. It's good.
So the next one, how identify women affected by climate change? Remember that zone from the word go. It's an harsh. I talked about ASAL. It's an ASAL region, implying that people who stay there, whether you are a man, you are a kid, whether you are a man, you are a woman, or you are kids, you are all affected by climate change. So based on the area being high risk area, that was one condition. And even within Wajir West, if you go to like Ndama, NDMA guys, you're able to tell me clearly this village is most affected. And remember, this being a qualitative study, I went for what we call purposive, because you'll ask even people like during like the recent drought and flood, who are affected more, which women were affected more here, and people are able to pinpoint. So there's an issue of purposive, and there's also issue of snowball sampling. I don't know whether I've made uh, is it called Arun Asuma? Are you satisfied with what you had asked and I've responded to?
I think he has some issues with his sound because we couldn't hear him.
Yes, I'm
Okay.
satisfied.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you so
thank
much. Right, we move to the next team. That is Akunola. Over to you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor, for that wonderful and insightful presentation. The issue of resilience and adaptation is always topical and very interesting. And it was great to see some of your findings, how women in those locations are coping and trying to be resilient to issues related to climate change. So my question, okay, so your recommendation highlights financial inclusion, mental health support, and disaster preparedness for women facing climate risk. However, given the structural barriers many women face, such as land ownership restrictions and sociocultural norms, how can these interventions be made more transformative, ensuring that women are not just recipients of aid, but active decision makers in climate resilience planning? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Akunola. Dr. I hope you've taken note of that. Let's move to Chris, then you answer the two together. Chris, over to you.
Thank you, Lavenda. Hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So I have maybe 3 questions or comments. So the first one was on slide 1. You mentioned that the Wajir is the most important economic activity is pastoralism, and it's dominated by men. Like men are the ones who go to look for pasture and water. So I was wondering what came to my mind immediately was, now how do women make like how do they make a livelihood from it? But from the results, I saw you said like a shift from pastoralism to trade. So I was wondering, are the women shifting or men? But then you said also something on firewood. So I have a question on that. Don't you think cutting down trees, because how would you cut tree? It will also keep on contributing to climate change. You could find an alternative solution for that as an alternative livelihood for women instead of them selling firewood, because it may not be solving the climate change problem, given that is a ASAL region, so means trees could be not like, they don't have many trees like maybe in other parts of the country. Then a question on sampling, just a follow up. Why did you consider like maybe having age groups for example, younger women and older women separately? Why did you like just say to enter women as in one FGD? And you said you had 16 FGDs for women. I was wondering why did you ignore also having FGDs for men just to get insights from men on how women build resilience to climate change? Just to double check what women. I know you mentioned too, you did community insights, but if you would have done for men separately, maybe it can add some more insights to the study. And then lastly, the last recommendation, on recommendation, maybe I missed something. There is a recommendation on drought tolerant seeds. So that means there is some sort of crop farming in Wajir. So is it that crop farming is for women and livestock is for men? Yeah, that's all.
Thank you, Chris. Dr. Ray, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Just a clarification, the firewood that they are using or they are selling is not out of trees. It's different. If you have been to Wajir or Northeastern, or the region from, let's say the region from Tana River County up to the entire Northeastern, there's a kind of plant called madenge. It's like a weed. So the branches of madenge, that is what some of them are using it as a source of fuel, like firewood. Those are the things that I'm talking about, not the actual trees. Then we are talking about sampling in terms of FGDs. If you heard me correctly, I did also say that there's one FGD where I mixed men and other key informants. The second one. For us, we thought that if we have it like that, remember our key focus was on women. Anything for men, for us bringing the other key informants, it was just to collaborate, but we wanted the lived experiences. So how do I put a man in this community to act like a lived experience of a situation and it's not a woman? We focused more on the issues of let them be like the information is just to collaborate, and mainly for people who are working within that area, men could be able, who are Muslims and they're pastoralists, they could give you, and they're enlightened, they could give us more information. When we look at our in-depth interview, I did say that we had comparison, we had different like young women, older women, something, and they were giving us at separate level, they could give us their own lived experiences, even without putting like having a FGD of women, of younger women alone, something like that. Then you are saying that it seems like crop farming is for women and men are not doing that. Due to climate change, majority of men also have moved away. They have to move whenever this hazard, they are moving. So women are thinking outside the box. Am I going to sleep? No. They are into the CBOs or the women chamas, where they're being told about you can actually survive. Even here, we can still get some small water, do your what we call sack gardening, techniques where they're being told. That is why you might think that it's like, is it that men are focusing on pastoralism? They have gone with their livestock, but you are being left with kids. Majority is 5 to 8 kids. How do you do it? And kids have to do it. You find there are some NGOs there who are also talking about issues of agriculture, and they make them be okay. Then there's the person who talked about the issues of land ownership and something like that. Ideally, if you look at our constitution of Kenya, Constitution 2010, and some of the acts of like land ownership, nowadays, at least women have got a say. If you go back, I think 2003 or 2005, when NRC came into power, Kibaki government, initially, women were more disadvantaged in terms of issues of loan because you used to be told, go and come with your husband. And you know, men can be cheeky in Kenya because you'll go, you know, your wife wants a loan, you go and guarantee her, but already you tell the wife, you need money, like a sign-in fee. It's my signature here, so you'll have to share with me money. All issues of land ownership, they are all aligned in our acts of parliament or laws and policies. So the issue of linking it to microfinance is still not a problem completely, because they've got an option, women, to take loans either as groups, just like before, where the group leaders or the group certificate become like guarantor to them. Still, some of them, if they are learned, it's easier to get what? It's easier to get loans, microfinance, to deal with climate change. And that is why them to circumvent what you're talking about, the issues of land ownership, these women have opted to go to the cheaper ones, microfinance, the informal ones. Informal ones, there are not many conditions. But still within the formal ones, there is currently a very great room. So long as your organization or the women groups can act as what? Can act as a guarantor for you. And even if they are in somewhere, if you look at the level of education that I mentioned about, you'll find that they are trying. And even the young ones who have gone to education, they are enlightening the older women so that they know at the time my husband is around and there's a lot of heat waves or floods or drought, that is the time this guy is happy. He wants keep on saving for future, so that at least they get money at the hardest time. So someone is asking, how is the use of herbal remedies a resilient strategy in mitigating climate change? Remember, the key issues here we're talking about is drought and floods. Some of them, during time of drought, they don't have money to go to hospital facilities. Floods can bring about the issues we call about homa, people feeling unwell. So since they don't have the little and the husband has gone with the livestock, what do? They ask for the local. Every community has got indigenous knowledge of how to deal with medical problems. That is what I meant, Daniel Yukuri Koba.
Okay, thank you so much. I hope everyone is satisfied with the answer that you've been given. Daniel, I hope you're satisfied. Akunola, Chris. Not unless there's any additional question.
Yes, Lavender, I'm satisfied.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, I think time is also gone. At this point, I'll just welcome two more people just to give us a comment, and probably we close this meeting for today. So Florence, if you can hear me, over to you. Kindly just give us your comment, or in case you have a question on this presentation. Over to you, Florence.
Thank you very much, Lavender. Really, I don't have any question. But I think this is a very insightful study, Dr. Mutua, and thank you very much. This is a topic that is incredibly important to us at the Africa Research and Impact Network, given that we are deeply committed to enhancing resilience for marginalized communities, that is women, children, and the disabled. And your work really sheds light on the gender dimension of climate adaptation, especially in the county of your study. And the challenges you've highlighted are not just unique to Wajir, they actually resonate across the entire continent. Women are absolutely central to household and community resilience. in the face of climate change. And you know that across Africa, women particularly in the arid and semi-arid area regions, the Sahel, the Horn of Africa, and some parts of Southern Africa, it is women who bear the brunt of climate-induced shocks, droughts, floods, and even resource scarcity always find women at the front lines. They're the ones who rely on livelihood diversification, community support, and indigenous knowledge to navigate these uncertainties. And we see this in Ethiopia, Niger, the Southern Sudan, where women are engaged in small-scale businesses, informal trades, and even savings group, which is very critical for sustaining their families. And these are not just income generating activities, they are critical safety nets during climate crisis. And even closer home, in my own home turf, I see the same resilience. Women are actively involved in small-scale trade, agribusinesses, just finding innovative ways to adapt to climate change. And therefore, their ability to leverage local knowledge and even build these networks actually underscores how critical their role is in climate adaptation across Africa. But Lavender, the systemic barriers that women face in adapting to climate change is very daunting. The gender stereotypes that are entrenched in women environment, the patriarchal norms that restrict women's opportunities and decision-making power is quite not interesting. Women even experience land ownership constraints, and you and I also know we experience inadequate representation in climate governance. And all these undermine our adaptive capacity and actually even deepens our vulnerability. And therefore, it will be very interesting to see the policy document that will come from this study, given the elaborate recommendations. Thank you so much, and back to you, Lavender.
Thank you so much, Florence. Thank you so much for those highlights. Really, the ecosystem of climate change adaptation, especially that involving women, is really complex. And also this calls for also a systematic approach in kind of trying to solve the issue. Thank you so much for that. All right, I'm seeing someone. Victoria, kindly, in case you can hear me, just give me, and you're in a position to speak. Vicky?
Hi, Lavender.
Yeah.
Hi. You can hear me well?
Yes.
Yeah. I wasn't prepared to speak, but I think I have listened to the presentation quite keenly and also the comments. And possibly what I can say is this is a very holistic research that cuts across the area of climate change adaptation very well, because I think the researcher has done justice to gender differentiation when it's looking at the climate adaptation, looking at and all strategies that we can possibly link to the topic of today. More specifically, I think I like your theoretical framework because it's very interesting. The first time hearing of it, so I can say that I've learned something new today, and it's very well broken down into all the aspects. And when we look at all the capitals, the livelihood capitals that need to be looked at when you're looking at adaptation and resilience, I think this very well does a lot of justice to the research and the topic of trying to look at gender differentiation when it comes to climate change. So I have really learned a lot. I also agree with what Florence had just said. It is very, very interesting research. And I think everyone, based on how the comments and the questions have come, it appears it's something that it's a topic that opens up so many angles of learning and, scratching our minds as we try to address climate change. And also, I think someone asked, how could have men contributed to understanding the issues that affect women? I think that is also very interesting, because somehow it could bring the other side of what do men think about how women are disproportionately, burdened by the effects of climate change, which is very interesting as well. So honestly, I've taken so many notes from your research, Dr. Mutua, and I hope that you could share links to your publications if there are any. So that we could, just borrow up some. So I like, honestly, even the recommendations that you have outlined at the end. So I'd also like to, if it's not a problem, just get a hold of your presentation, just go back and read it at our own time. So thank you for that. Very well done. And I hope everybody has learned something as I have done. Thank you, Lavender. I'll take it back to you.
Thanks so much, Vicky. Thanks so much for those really insights and highlights you've put across. We're really learning a lot, and I can even see in the chat section, everyone's saying they've learned a lot. And this is really the key reason why we bring together these fellows and have these Friday reviews. Dr. there's something you want to say? I can see your hand is up.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I just want to just comment something in relation to Florence's comment and the last presenter. Ideally, I had this study of ours had three objectives. We were looking at how climate change has affected family cohesion. So there was also another aspect of family cohesion, and we also looked at how climate-induced migration has affected family dynamics. So it's all about women have taken, there's actually a lot of gender shift roles of responsibilities. Women have now turned to become breadwinners in those communities. And then now to tie it with what I think had been asked earlier, I think either by Daniel or something, how men think. Men think badly because in that Muslim community, the responses that came out is that you start repairing house, your husband is away. You are controlling finances. Your husband come and find that you are whether he's there or not there, you are not asking for the money for food or something. Then at the end of the day, man thinks like now these ones have wanted to take control of now the women have started becoming heads instead of being something like neck or something like that. Those are some of the voices that were coming out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I can see Chris laughing. Men think badly. Yeah, you men, you need to tell us. How do you think? Anyway, thank you so much. This is really interesting, and I really love the conversation. I think we have to come to an end of it. And probably the way Vicky said, you can share with us the link to your publications and also the presentation so that we can share with the team and also those who will find this interesting. I can share with them as well. Just reach out to me in case you love this. All right, I'll just do it though. Anyway, I'll welcome Dr. Isaiah to finally give us the closing remark. Dr. please.
Yes, Lavender, thank you so much. And I want to appreciate everyone who joined us today. I'm outside, so if you can't hear me clearly, you can bear with me. So I want to appreciate everyone who joined us today. This is a great learning platform. And as researchers, there is no other better place to learn and exchange ideas than this. More specifically, I want to appreciate Dr. Mutua for the thorough work he's done. Particularly, I incline so much on what you've done. I tried to see climate adaptation from gender and social inclusion lens. And this is one particular area that has not been given the rigorous process or thoughts that is needed. So well done, and I encourage you to share your work as people have expressed willingness to read and align with your thoughts. So to everyone who joined, please spread the word so that we get to learn and accumulate enough knowledge to go forth as researchers. Thank you so much, Lavender. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think I have nothing to add or to say after this. Jerry, just let us know when you're ready so that we can take the final group photo.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready. You
All
can
right,
turn
so
on your.
we can turn on our cameras in case you are in a position to, or you're comfortable to do that. Just turn on your camera and you can smile. I mean, it's Friday. Yeah.
Okay. In case Jerry is not ready, I've done it.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much
Yes,
for
I've
it.
done it.
Thank
Yes,
you so
yes.
much.
I've done it too.
Okay.
All right. The men think badly. Anyway, thank you so much, team. I really appreciate this. Was really amazing. May you really be blessed. Thanks so much, Dr. Ari, for the presentation. I'm looking forward to it and also the link to your publications. We can learn a lot from that. Thank you so much. May you have a fantastic weekend ahead, and let's touch base in March, first week of March. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Lavender.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye and thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.